another buddy that was going to join us, John Gaderos, and he called us and unfortunately was in a car accident. And thankfully he's okay, but it was just, he was going 55, he said, and he rolled his vehicle. And I think there was another vehicle involved, but he was able to call us. He sounded good, but it made me nervous to get that phone call like, hey, dude, go get yourself taken care of. Don't worry about us,
Call
you
an
know?
ambulance.
Yeah. So kind of crazy. But so Samong, I was talking to you a little bit before we got started, but my cousin Dylan actually turned me on to your videos about 2 years ago and just knew you were doing stuff in the Northwest that was similar to what we do. And, he unfortunately couldn't make it here tonight, but, what I really appreciate about your style is you're not giving any away spots or secret things like that, but you educate people and you tell them, how you're going about the hunt. And just the other thing that I really like about how you do things is to me, you're more about the hunt or the trip than the filming. Like you get good quality stuff on film, but you're more focused on experiencing the experience rather than recording the experience, if that makes sense. And
Mhm.
I don't know if you feel that way.
Yeah, I
But
think that's something that I started doing without even actually trying to do. It what started out, and I mean, we'll dive into it later on, but I started out just filming it because I like to film. I
mhm,
didn't I didn't go out there with this idea that I'm gonna make a specific type of video. It was really I'm doing this and I'm just bringing a camera along, right? And so when
mhm,
you do that, you're just naturally filming whatever you would do regardless. And so it's something that I tell people all the time today, even doing this for over a decade now. It's like if you took the camera away from my hands, I'd still be doing the same exact thing. Like it doesn't really change my course of direction here. And I think that's something that at the time when I first started, I didn't really realize how significant that was until people started pointing that out to me, where they're
mhm.
like, I just appreciate the fact that you're out there hunting. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. Like I'm not trying to fake hunting. Like if there's things to fake, like trust me, hunting's the last thing I want to fake because hunting is not worth the time if you're trying to fake it.
Mm. Well, and I think that resonates with your viewers, the authenticity of that. The fact that you're out there doing it and you're just showing people what you're doing, and it comes across in the video. So I really appreciate that about your style because, sometimes I think, and I'm not going to point anybody out, but sometimes there's videos that are just, you can tell how heavily edited they are, and
Hmm.
yours are authentic in the moment. Like your rods will hit the ground sometimes with the bell on and you're running over to grab it or whatever. And
Yeah.
so I don't know. I appreciate that about your style. So the next question I had was, how did you get started in your life outdoors, and what is your earliest outdoor memory?
Yeah, so I grew up into this stuff. So my dad and my uncles, they were always outdoorsmen. That's the easiest way to put it. So they go back a lot deeper than I do because they're actually refugees from the Secret War. So they fled basically Laos and Vietnam, fled over to Thailand, and then from Thailand, that's when they started finding refuges. And my particular family, like my dad, my parents, my uncles, they came here to Washington State, in particularly Spokane, which is where I was born and raised. And the thing about Hmong culture is it's a culture where you're extremely tied to nature, meaning that in order to survive back in the Laos jungles, in order to eat meat, you had to either hunt or fish, or if you were privileged enough, you were a farmer. But most people weren't rich enough to be, raising poultry and chickens and pigs and cows and whatnot. So most people, like a lot of my uncles, they had to go to the jungle and start hunting for their own food. So they hunted for whatever they could find. Granted, when I say hunting, their styles of hunting back then is completely different than what we're using today. Like they're not over there with a 30-06 Springfield with a 16x scope. Like they're using like homemade like slingshots and homemade
Mhm.
crossbows. Like they're picking it up from scratch in the jungle using whatever is available in the jungle. But regardless, like that, that's kind of the root of where hunting really revolves in my family. So when they came here to the United States, yes, it's a very drastic difference in terms of how you go about hunting, but at the core of it, you're still a hunter. And so when they
Mhm.
came here, they started trying to figure out how they can still hunt. And granted, you're here in the United States, so you're not hunting the same species you would back in Laos. And here, what they started learning was there's a lot of rules and regulations. Because in Laos,
Yeah.
it's like you have free reign. Like it doesn't matter what you saw over there, you were just shooting it. And so one of the biggest things that they dealt with was obviously the language barrier. Like
Mhm.
you're moving into a completely new country. You don't even know how to read, you don't even know how to speak it. And so they somehow just made it work. And so when I was born in 97, so they had already settled here for about 12 years. And so when you have settled for about 12 years, at that point you have life somewhat in a rhythm. And so you're not actually trying to figure it out. So when I was born straight into basically deer hunting and grouse hunting. That's what I started out hunting with. And so when
Mm.
I was like four, I think I was like maybe even 3 years old, 3 or 4 years old, way longer than I can remember. My dad, he started taking me along on these grouse hunts because that was pretty easy to do. I mean, deer hunting compared to like a small game hunt is a lot more tedious. And so he just started taking me along. And granted, I had a bunch of cousins that I grew up with. So like you had like 10-year-olds in the camp, you had like 4-year-olds in the camp, you had like 18-year-olds in the camp, all the way up to the uncles and my dad and whatnot. And so that's kind of where I got my start in not just hunting, but like fishing because you hunt in the fall and then during the summer and the spring you go fishing instead. And so my life, if you took hunting and fishing out of my life, like I really don't know where I'd be at. And that sounds really weird to say, but that's how big of an impact hunting has made on my life. And so, yeah, that's kind of my start. And then over time, the more you grow up, the more you just kind of fall more and more into it. And so that's kind of where I am today.
Man, that's well said. It's a really neat story. I mean, just your origin story, if you will, that, got you started in following in the family footsteps. My cousins and I and my uncles will come on the show every once in a while, and we'll talk about that. Like, we see each other at the hunting trips and the fishing trips, and it's like a family reunion, if you will. Like, those were the times we hung out with family, was when we were, going to the river or going to the woods. And what kind of animals were they hunting in Laos? Do you know?
They, so I mean, they're hunting like their own species of deer. Like I don't know the exact name of deer, but they're hunting deer. They're hunting wild hogs. Granted, it's not the same hogs that we see here in Texas. They're very short haired. They're black little hogs. I mean, they usually weigh no more than like 30 pounds. They got like
Mm.
wild jungle fowl chickens. Um, and then if you were really ambitious, you'd go after like Asian water buffalo, but you
Oh,
didn't really mess with those guys with the homemade crossbow, and so
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Those guys
and
will
then
ruin your day.
those and then just the random little birds that you probably just see all over the place. But the ones that really stuck out that people try to go after were like your wild chickens, your wild pigs, and occasionally your wild deer. And I even have stories of just hearing from my uncles back then of them going after like monkeys and all that stuff. Because
Wow.
again, there it's like meat is meat. Like
Hmm.
here in America, like we might have a distaste to certain animals, for example, right? But over there, it's like when you actually have to hunt to survive, that discrimination towards a certain species or towards a certain type of meat is non-existent. And that's something that I feel like we're really privileged here to say that this animal tastes bad and this animal tastes good because when you're in a dire survival situation, there's no such thing as bad tasting meat.
Hmm. Protein and meat is meat.
Exactly.
Uh, have you spoke to your dad and your uncles about when they came to America, about their perception on how easy it was to buy a firearm? Because I imagine back then it was either only for the privileged people, to own it, or if it was even possible for
Yeah.
people to own a weapon there.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever specifically talked to them about the firearm buying process, but I know for a fact that back in Laos, like they didn't have actual firearms because one, they didn't sell them. Like you didn't have a
Yeah, it's not
retail
a
store.
gun store.
Yeah, you didn't have a retail store down the road where you could just go and pick
Mm.
up a gun. But what actually ended up happening was after the whole secret war, that's what happened. What had happened was there was a lot of leftover firearms that were just left behind from the
Mm.
military. And one of my uncles, he was actually quote unquote drafted to be part of this army. It was actually the U.S. Army that came in, and they drafted a bunch of young Hmong men, and which at that time was my uncles, to go help fight against the communists. And then eventually the United States pulled out, and there was a bunch of leftover firearms. And so at some point in time, like my uncle was actually able to get like an M16
Hmm.
and stuff
Wow.
like that. But that was way before like, the whole, or that was way after like when life was good, right? Because when you're in the middle of a
Hmm.
war, life is not good. Like you're not,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if you have a M16 with you, like you're in the jungle literally surviving. That's why my
Mm.
mom always refers to that, that generation of Hmong people as jungle people because they had literally spent years of their life literally in the jungle without a house. I mean, that's where my grandma died, right? Like she had like I don't even know, like a dozen or so kids. And when you have that many mouths to feed, it's like, and food is so thin, you have to ration your food to feed your kids. And so basically, my
Mm.
grandma, she basically starved to death because there was just not enough to go around. And so
Wow.
that's kind of the background of it. But back to your question, I mean, that's a whole rabbit hole that I just went down.
Yeah.
But back to your question, I never asked them about it. But when they came here, they were just like, yeah, we went to Walmart and just picked up the first rifle that we could afford.
Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, it's probably just you should pick their brain about that, but probably a pretty big eye opener, I imagine. And then the war you speak of, is this Vietnam, post Vietnam, pre Vietnam, or is it, what specifically are you talking about there?
No, this is Vietnam. So I mean,
Vietnam.
the Secret War, like I don't. It's kind of weird because depending on what historical database you look at it from, like the dates aren't always the same because
Sure.
apparently like some people classify this as the Secret War and that as the Secret War. But basically, like in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, like whatever time frame you want to bunch into that. But like that's about when this whole thing was happening. I would probably say more like the 70s slash early 80s is when this happened,
Mhm.
because when my parents came over, I think it was 1989, when they
Mm.
came here to the United States. And so, a couple years before that, that's when it happened.
Yeah, where I'm from, here in Oregon, there's a small, like I grew up with them, but it was basically one, two families of Hmong citizens that came
Mm.
over here. And like where I'm from, honestly, it's predominantly white, Hispanic, and Russian. But it was just like that. I grew up K through 12 with the same family, and their dads were really big into deer hunting. That was a huge part of them taking the boys out every year. We would always see them, and everyone kind of has the same areas year to year. We always saw them out every year.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty fascinating background for how you got started. Do you have any desire to go back there and hunt as an adult? Would you ever want to go back?
Well, one of the things about it, so I've actually been asked that. So one of the partners I work with is Yeti, and with Yeti, they have this show or like one of their little series. It's called Yeti Presents, where they kind of take a certain character or like they'll take like an ambassador back to like wherever they came from.
Hmm.
And so Andrew, he's my contact over at Yeti. He's like, man, it'd be cool to just take you back and go and film that stuff. But the thing about it is like I never grew up there, and so
Hmm.
like there's really no sentimental value for
Hmm.
for me personally, right? Like I just
Yeah.
know that that's where I came from, but like to me
Hmm.
personally speaking, like to me it would feel more like a foreign country than it does
Yeah.
home, right? And
Right.
so like, but as opposed to like if you took like my dad back there, like it's a completely different context because that's
Oh,
where he
yeah.
grew up and that's he has probably way more memories about that place than I do. Now with that said, I think it'd be pretty interesting and probably even fun to go back because one, I've never been there before, and then two, you kind of see all these stories that you heard from your parents and your uncles kind of come to life a little bit because my dad, they went back to visit back in 2015, just to go visit old family that's still living around there. And they've been trying to get all the kids to go. But like I said, man, when you don't grow up in a place, it's kind of hard to convince you to go there because it's
Yeah.
like, why would we go there when we couldn't go visit somewhere else?
Yeah.
There's
You
no
told us
meaning
how
to it.
hard it was. We'd rather be on the beach somewhere, like soaking the sun up.
Yep,
But also, like, your roots from watching some of your videos is like the Snake River. You talk about, like, so that has that nostalgic piece for you, and you always go back, like,
yep.
at least from what I've seen, because that's where you grew up fishing and doing your thing. So,
Exactly. And so like a lot of my roots is here in Washington State or here in the Pacific Northwest. Like if you took me to
hmm.
Snake River, I'm like, man, I have a lot of memories at that place.
Hmm.
But for example, to go to Laos, it's just kind of like it feels more like a vacation than it is
Yeah.
down the memory lane. So
Yeah.
that's just kind of where it goes.
I mean, seeing it through their eyes if they were with you would be cool. But yeah, like you said, more for your dad and your uncles and that kind of thing. you know. But they kind of, I mean, who knows? But I was just curious if you had a desire to do that or not. But so I was going to ask you, what's your favorite animal to hunt, and then your favorite fish to catch?
Mm. See, one of the things about living here in the Pacific Northwest, particularly Washington, like I know Washington doesn't have the best reputation for anything really, but the one thing that I can vouch for Washington and even Oregon is that we have probably one of the most diverse list of animals that you can hunt and fish that you can catch. I mean,
Hmm.
Oregon and Washington, we got two different species of elk. I mean, we got three species of deer. I mean, not many states have that, right? But amongst them all, man, I'm a mule deer guy. Like it,
Yes, I'm a mule deer guy too, so I love that
yeah,
response.
so like I love hunting everything and I love that I don't really just get to choose one, like I kind of get to do all of them. But to
Hmm.
me, I think mule deer is probably my top one. And it kind of has to do with sentimental value because our
Hmm.
deer camp is pretty much revolved around mule deer. And so that's where I grew up. Like I grew up chasing
Hmm.
mule deer a lot. And growing up older, some people have fallen out of it, but if anything, I feel like I've gotten deeper in that rabbit hole with mule deer. And then with fish, I love trout fishing. I
Hmm.
don't care if they're stock trout. I love trout fishing. Like I'll be on the river just catching trout on power bait all day. I won't get bored of it. Some people
I
will look
wa
at me. Yeah, some people look at that and they're like, dude, that's like the most childish way to catch a fish. And I'm like, I don't care if it's childish. I enjoy it.
Yeah, I watched your latest two videos from the guys from Utah, and you were on the
Hmm.
Columbia River with power bait, and
Yep.
you were like, you guys were knocking them dead, and they were like good sized fish. I mean, they were like steelhead sized trout. It looked like, you
Oh,
know.
we're spoiled up here with that fishery. And
Hmm.
if you go down below the dam, that's where they raise the really, really big trout. I caught a 15.5 pounder, and that's on the lower end over
Oh,
there. Yeah, and
yeah.
so that specific stretch of the river, Fish and Game and some of the tribes, they raise those fish actually as commercial fish. So they'll raise them,
Mm-hmm.
feed them really well, have super high quality meat, and they'll actually ship it to like Japan, for example, and make money that way. But in terms of like just your weekend warrior can go do it. Like I love to just go out to the river, like on those beaches, and just throw out
Mm-hmm.
power bait and make a fire and just stay warm. Kind of like what you just saw in the past two videos. Like that's
Yeah,
my
no,
jam.
those were good, and it reminded me like I always grew up fishing trout with power bait growing up. Like my dad was a trout fisherman, he never did the salmon steelhead thing, and then I got into that in high school, and then I kind of deviated more towards hunting. But mule deer is the same thing for me, so that's all my dad did growing up. So we grew up, and that's like the nostalgic mule deer camp. So that's my favorite thing to hunt as well. So I was pumped when you said that. What about
Yeah,
you, Chris? You're
I
like a
like.
bear hunting guy.
Yeah, I like bears a lot. Blacktails. Grew up hunting blacktails in the valley.
Mm.
All very ghost-like. You know.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Blacktails are challenging and very
but
fun to
very,
hunt as
especially
well,
up
but
here, and I'm the same trout. I have fished. If you chalk up the hours, probably more hours spent trout and kokanee fishing, mostly in Central Oregon and some of these creeks in the valley here that
Mhm.
you can't fish anymore. But yeah, I'm the same way. It's something that my dad and I, even as a family, we always did. And even my other friends, it's like you can
mhm.
take anybody to do that
Yeah.
with power bait and teach them. It's
Yeah, the
great.
power bait thing is huge. I think the guy that invented power bait was from Bend, Oregon, and then he sold it to
Really.
somebody else. Yeah, he sold it out to some big, and he probably never has to work again, kind of
Yeah,
thing.
I love it.
Because
I
I
think
mean, I was gonna ask you about that. So my friends swear by the natural garlic power bait because we always use that on Diamond Lake, and we use like a 2 pound leader, just light leader, and we knock them dead with that. They're probably mad that I'm saying this, but I noticed you were using the red stuff on your latest videos, and I kept going, why isn't he using the all natural? Have you tried the all natural garlic before?
At this point, I feel like I've used every single
Yeah,
possibility that power bait offers. And the one thing
yeah,
I've come to learn is it doesn't really matter sometimes.
yeah.
Um, I think it's particularly some days. I don't really think there's a color that pops in my mind that would say that I fish better with that one per se. I noticed
Hmm.
that some days they just want a certain type of color. And the next
Hmm.
day you can go to that same exact spot, you throw in that same color that you were crushing in the day before, and they just don't touch it. And so
Yeah.
that's why when I go out there, I like to have usually a 4 to 5 different colors of power bait. But I usually do like to tend to like the more vibrant colors. So like
Hmm.
red and even chartreuse, your garlic stuff you're talking about, orange. That's what
Mm.
I go for. Like I've never really had too much luck, probably because I never really used them on like your natural colors, like your browns and maybe your greens and your black and stuff like that. But the really vibrant ones, those are the ones I usually cater to.
Well, you weren't having any trouble catching fish. You could barely set your rod down and it was going off again. But it was like I was laughing watching you roll it because you know that power bait fingers, and then you go to take a bite of a sandwich or
Yeah.
something. It's the worst. Like that's yeah. My boss would hate this conversation because he's a purist. He's a fly fisherman for trout. My old
Mm.
boss, actually, he's retired now, but he catches some of the biggest trout I've ever seen in my life. Like, I mean, he catches these monster bulls. He went on the Metolius here recently and caught a bunch of whitefish and like five giant bull trout. I mean, he was catch and release, obviously, but I was just like, man, I want to be able to fish like that someday.
I
Well,
don't
the
think
good thing
there's
about
any.
them is we don't have to worry about competing because we're not even fishing for the same fish.
Right.
It-
Exactly.
I don't even think there's any rhyme or reason to the power bait. I
Yeah.
think just randomly one day that's the one. Because I fished the same lakes my whole life in Central Oregon. And then for a while there was a stretch where it was cheese, corn, and garlic. And all they asked, oh, that you'll never catch fish on. And then they just put a red on one day, and like this is today's, it's red,
Yeah.
and tomorrow, who knows?
And it's so fun when you have the hot rod. And
Oh,
usually for me, it's going like lighter pound test on my leader or a smaller
24.
hook because a lot of guys use such big hooks and like heavy leader. And if you go a little bit lighter, I mean, you got to net the fish sometimes so you don't break them off. But I found that to help quite a bit.
Yeah, it's funny because I haven't edited this video, but I went, me and my buddy Nick, we were out the other day and we were just using straight up those little white marshmallows at Walmart, the ones that you eat, and those were
Nice.
outperforming the power bait. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, well, say goodbye to $7 jars of power bait and your, $2 bag of however many marshmallows you can count. And
That's
so sometimes it's like, is the power bait really necessary? I don't know. I don't think so. As long as it floats up and they can see it and they want it, it doesn't really matter.
my dad tells a story of finding a cigarette butt on his way to the fishing hole and taking out the white fluffy part of the cigarette butt and throwing it out there and catching a trout
I
with
used
that.
an
So
earplug
Oh,
on
wow.
one,
yeah,
like a pink and yellow earplug with a hook on it. And I
yeah.
thought,
So it's everything works and nothing works,
yeah,
right?
and I can't believe a thing of power bait's like $7, which is
Yeah.
crazy.
It's insane. I think
Yeah,
like pre-COVID when I started doing the power bait shenanigan thing, I think it was like 3.99 for a jar. Right now it's literally 6.99, which I just think is insane.
it
I
was
haven't fished trout in so many years, so I
really.
no, but I have a ton of power that's probably like 10 years
Go
old,
over
but
to the Sun
yeah,
River
Oh,
house.
we're gonna have to go do some
Yeah,
fishing.
that's over at the Sun River
It's
place.
making me nostalgic for the old power bait fishing. So, knew you were coming on the show, and I've watched a lot of your newer stuff, but I hadn't watched a lot of your older videos. And so, the oldest one that I found on YouTube was a 2016 mule deer hunt. And to me, it was like, I mean, obviously you've grown up, and we kind of can watch you mature on camera, as you've aged in your style and your equipment and things like that. But it was still had that same flavor that I appreciate about your videos, where it was just very authentic and all that. And so I wanted to ask, when did you start filming your adventures, and was it, like I know some people, like Nathan Endicott, for example, like he started filming because him and his buddies just like to watch their hunts, and it was kind of like before the YouTube thing. So what motivated you to start filming your hunts and fishing trips?
yeah. So the channel that I have right now, the Samong Outdoors channel, I started that channel I think late 2016.
Mhm.
But the whole filming stuff, it goes way before that. So I think it was 2011, the Christmas of 2011, and I got this little iPod Touch, which at that time, you have to understand where I come from, right? I gave you guys a brief background of where my parents come from. And so when you come from a country like that, you move to a brand new country, you have nothing, right? So you can imagine how poor I grew up because my parents had 9 kids, right? I'm the seventh child. And so when you have
Mhm.
even that much children, you can imagine like we just don't have toys. We didn't grow up with games. We grew up with nothing. And so into 2011, when my brother-in-law he got me this iPod Touch, I mean, this was like revolutionary for me. I'm like, wow, I'm like everybody else at school. I have my own little technology on my pocket all the time. And on the iPod Touch, I think it was a Generation 4, it had a camera on it. And I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world that now I can like actually take videos and pictures and have it saved on my phone because you have to understand that up until that point in my life, like I never had anything on me where I can save a memory. I couldn't take a photo, I couldn't take a video
Mm,
where I can be like, oh, let me look at this later. And so up until then, like I just had to live life in the moment, and there's nothing wrong with that. If anything, that's a good thing. But sometimes you do like to go back and just kind of live it because sometimes living it through one time is not enough sometimes.
mm,
And so when I figured out they had a camera, I just started filming whatever I could. And at that time, we actually were raising backyard chickens. So we had this little rooster and this little hen in the back. And I was terrified of chickens. We did not grow up around chickens. But my parents, they took those chickens home from some relatives down in Portland, actually. And they kept telling the kids to go feed those chickens. And nobody wanted to do it. I did not want to do it, but then at the same time, I'm like, you know what? Like, I do like animals, so let me go and try to feed these birds. I was terrified of them, and then I started like filming me feeding my chickens, and then over time, that hen and that rooster, they got a bunch of little baby chicks, and so I started feeding these baby chicks, and so I was like, you know what? Let me just start filming these little baby chicks and watch them grow up. And that's really what I did for like the first 3, 4 years of YouTube. Like I had a YouTube channel created just for my chickens, where it was
mm,
literally just me going to the chicken coop, yeah, and feeding them and doing that same shenanigan. But then on top of that, because hunting had already been so natural to my life at that point, the whole filming thing kind of just shifted over when it was during the fall season. So it's not like I had this super awesome idea of like, oh, let me become this big figure on YouTube because you have to understand in early 2011, 2012, 2013, YouTubers are not a thing. I don't even think that
mm.
term was a thing. Nobody was doing it full time, at least not in the hunting space. And so
Yeah.
I did it as what everybody else would do. You go out there with your old cheap camcorder and you just film whatever your family would want to watch. And then in 2015, my one of my older cousins, was going to go to Idaho for an archery elk hunt because that's what he's been doing for like 4 years up until that point. And he's like, "Hey man, like if you want to go, like just go." And I was like, "Oh, this is really cool. Let me go film you shoot some elk in Idaho or something." And so I tagged along, and that year was kind of like the pivotal year for me where I was like, whoa, like this is actually really cool. And at that time, I kind of got some views. I got like 1,000 views on a video. But to me at that time, I was like, that's huge. Like this could be something. And so I started posting videos, and granted, like, they're not very good, but people started watching. And so
Yeah.
people just started trickling in. And granted, it's a slow organic growth. I never really had that
Mm,
virality that some people get where they just blow up overnight. Like I really had to just keep grinding my way up. But you
mm.
have to understand that 2015 was when I started college too. And so when I was doing college, I was doing the whole filming stuff on the side. And all throughout college, like I never had this idea of like I'm gonna become a YouTuber as a job. Like that was not a thing. It was I'm gonna go to college, get a job, and then just keep doing this as a side hobby. But then around that time between 2016 to 2020, this is when you kind of started seeing that super uprise of hunting and YouTubers, right? You started seeing the Hush guys and the Born and Raised guys. Those guys
Yeah.
started taking it to the next level, and then they kind of lit that light, kind of like this is possible. Like if you actually wanted to do this as a job, there's possibilities here. And so I kind of just took mental note of it and whatnot and then just kind of rode that wave. And then I graduated right in 2020, June of 2020, peak COVID. So I couldn't get a job. And so I was like, you know what? Let me just go and continue to film and do my YouTube channel. And then when 2021 rolled around, there was enough there on my YouTube channel where I was like, you know what? Like if I took another year off, I might be able to do this as a full-time job. And
Yeah.
so I took the 2021 year off and then 2022 rolled around and just somehow made enough to say this is my job and just kept riding the wave since then.
So you're full time in the outdoor space and
Yeah,
YouTube.
yep,
Mm,
I've been full. Well, I guess you could say I've never really did a jump because right outside of college, it was not a full-time job, but I really was doing nothing else. But to be able
mm.
to say that it was sustainable, that would be like right at the start of 2022. And then I just
Okay.
kind of been riding that wave.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
great. I mean, you're like an entrepreneur, right? You're not making anything for a while, and then enough to keep going, and it's
Yeah,
something
and
that you clearly love too, which is great to see.
yeah, and that's one of the points Sam brought up earlier is like, yeah, I have a following and all that stuff. But if you look at my content, it's still so it resembles a lot of how I started in the sense that like I'm just out there filming what I do. Like it's not like I
Mhm.
have a digital production in mind where I'm like I'm gonna go out there and make this super epic film with a crazy backstory. It's like no, I'm out there to look for an elk and I'm out there to try to kill an elk. Like that's basically what my hunts are. And like over time, like yeah, it might have changed in terms of like editing and filming and stuff like that. But that's just the idea that I think comes with improvement. Like I'm just trying to improve my skills of how I can capture that story better. It's not necessarily to
Mhm.
say that I want to up my production to make a film per se. I don't call them films. I don't like the word film. I just call them a video. I feel like film makes it too professional, a little, almost a little too fake in a way.
Mhm. Yeah, you're just keeping it real, keeping it authentic. Chris has a construction company, and I'm a mortgage guy. So
Mm.
I went to school and got a fish and wildlife degree, and I've been giving people mortgage loans for 20
Yeah, I
years.
skipped
So
that
yeah,
entirely. Just went straight to life.
but that this was a passion for me is the outdoor stuff, and that's why I pursued it in college. And then they tell you at Oregon State when you get in there and you meet with your fish and wildlife counselor, they say, well, 25% of our graduates find permanent employment, and
Oh, yeah, I
and
would
I
be
graduated
surprised.
in 2002,
Yeah,
so
I'd be surprised if it's 25%. Like
yeah.
you, Sam, you don't know this, but Sam was in the running that was it top six
For what?
ODFW.
Oh, well, that
I
was
say that you were in the running because I think
well,
he would have been the
I
ultimate
made the
choice for
first
me.
cut for the director,
He
but then
made the first cut for the
didn't.
director.
And that was just, you know, I thought I could do the gig, so I
You
applied
could.
for it, but it's a very political position and there's a lot of pressure on that
Yeah.
individual. Um, so one of your videos that I really liked, well, back to that first one. So in 2016, Chris and I are Christians. I just, you don't know what someone's faith is, but I saw that when you harvested that deer, you gave glory to God. So I always like to talk to people about their spiritual connection to the woods. Like for me, when I'm out hunting or fishing, it's like you see God. For me, it's like I'm grateful to see God's creation and what He's able to do. And just being out there in that environment, I feel closer to God when I'm in that position. I was curious to get your take on that.
Yeah, just some background. Yeah, so I grew up in the church and Hmong people, a lot of Hmong people I would still say today are shaman. Shamanism is the root of Hmong culture. And my grandpa, he was actually the one that converted his specific family, which is my mom and my uncles, over to Christianity. And that was way before they came here to the States. And so during all that survival in the jungle, they were Christians. And then when they came here to the States, I mean, obviously that translated to all the kids and myself included. And so I was born and raised in the church and still am in the church today. But that right there is kind of like the foundation. And obviously, one of the downfalls of growing up in the church or as a Christian is sometimes you don't really know why you believe it. You just go to church
Mhm.
because your parents took you to church, right? And so
Yeah.
that's a downside to growing up in the church. But on the flip side, it's like it can be good too if you stay on the right track. And so throughout the church or throughout my life growing up, like it was always church on Sundays, and then whenever there was a church event, you go to the church event, whether it's on a Saturday or Friday night. Youth hangouts, Easter, Christmas, you name it, like did the whole ordeal. And then in 2012, right around when I got this iPod Touch, when technology was starting to become a thing, joined the worship band at the church, and then I've been part of it ever since then. And so it's always been like church has always been part of my life. And the more that I have matured as a Christian and the more you have a better understanding of who God is and why you believe what you believe and all that good stuff, you start to really see what matters in life and what doesn't really matter in life. And so like you, when I go hunting, sometimes that's where I feel closest to God is like when there's no
Mhm.
noise, there's nobody else, it's just you, the animal, and God Himself and creation. And so, even today, that's one of the things that I feel like is what keeps me grounded because in a lot of industries, and particularly, I'm gonna kind of call out the hunting industry, man, it's there's a lot of ego. Okay, it's
Mhm.
always about who's gonna shoot the biggest animal, who's got the most trophies, and look at me type vibe. And being rooted in faith and in the word, it's like it's allowed me to kind of pick the pockets and see where there are holes in that stuff because some people would say that I have a dream job which I wouldn't necessarily argue that I don't, because this is insane. Like, to say that you hunt and fish as a living, that's pretty
Yeah.
crazy. A lot of people would be, they would do a lot of things to be in the same position, right? But even then, it still is like, is there really, is this really all there is to it? You know, at the
Mhm.
end of the day, it's like, okay, I go out, I hunt, and I make a video. It's like, is that really all there is to life? It's like, no, you're there for a greater purpose. It's
Mhm.
not just get some views and then grow a subscriber count and go on to the next one. And so having that as the foundation, it's allowed me to kind of, in a way, take hunting not as seriously as some people do, where it's not necessarily a competition. It's like you're out there because you're chasing something completely different than what somebody else might be out there for.
Mhm.
And that has, one, it's been a big mental help, because sometimes it's easy to be in the space where people are like, dude, you're not shooting the biggest animal. Or, when you're in the public spotlight, there's criticism that comes with it, right? And,
Mhm.
and they'll criticize you for all sorts of stuff. But at the same time, it's like, knowing what I know now and knowing where I'm trying to go, it's like all that stuff is so trivial. It's like it doesn't really matter. And so that's just kind of my background. That's why in like in my videos, like I tend to be pretty public about my faith, and
Mhm.
because that's actually what matters. So I
Yeah.
joke with some people, because I get some comments. People are always like, I came here to watch a hunting video, not a sermon. And I'm like, well,
Mhm.
you came here because you wanted to watch hunting, but you came here because you needed to hear that. So
Yeah.
like that's kind of how I go about it.
Mhm. Yeah, that's cool. And it's also to me the when I watch you hunt, you're not always after a trophy. You're trying to fill a tag sometimes. It depends on, I mean, obviously I feel like I know you because I've watched a handful of your videos and it's our first time actually meeting each other, but but that's just kind of how you resonate with people is because you're out there hunting and sometimes it's like, hey, we need to get this tag filled and this is what we're after. It's not a trophy situation all the time. And I feel like when I've the videos of your and I haven't watched all your stuff, but I've watched a decent amount, is there's a lot of gratitude when you harvest an animal, no matter what that animal is. And there's not like, oh, I wish it would have been bigger. Like, I don't ever feel like you come across that way anyway.
Well, yeah, I feel like the videos, which I haven't watched a lot of them, are like an actual representation of what it likes to hunt and fish. I mean, the whole idea that these shows, I try not to watch them so much anymore, but that they're always just killing the most giant. It's so unrealistic for the 99% of people who are in the outdoors. And that's
Hmm.
what I like about channels like yours. It's like this is normal content. I
Yeah.
mean, it doesn't always work out. I mean, that's the reality. And I think that's important. And that's probably why your subscriber base is good. I mean, you're continuing to grow and making, showing that you can actually make a living doing it, and maybe, who knows, maybe if you keep it up, you will have a TV show. I mean, you don't know. You have no idea. You've been doing it for quite a long time, which is awesome to see because you're still a young guy, but you don't know what the next 10 years, like, I
Yeah.
think
Well, don't get me wrong. I'd love to shoot a giant buck every time I go out there,
everybody
right?
does.
Sure.
Do
Yeah.
not get me wrong. But like you said, the reality of it is it's just not a possibility. At
Mhm.
least for how I hunt and what I'm after, right? And so
Mhm.
this is kind of a distinguishment that I make, and it's not to toot my own horn or anybody, but I'm very happy that I was raised by a hunting family and I was not raised by the hunting industry, because
Mhm.
the two raised two completely different individuals. Okay. And
Yeah.
because growing up hunting before social media was a thing, the only thing you know about hunting, granted coming from my family where all we did was public land hunting, over the counter general season tags, where you had to get after it if you wanted any success. Being
Mhm.
raised in that, what I would deem that organic way, it's allowed you to see the real perspective of hunting. That's why when I go to like hunting shows nowadays and you see all these people, it's like you kind of see the holes through them. And it's not to say that they're better or worse, or I'm better or worse. It's just that there are holes that I see where it's like that's not necessarily real in the aspect that the everyday hunter is going to encounter. It's just not real. And that's one of the, again, it's not really that I tried to do this in my videos. That's just the way it naturally was. It's like I know hunting a certain way, and I filmed hunting how I know how to hunt. And it was through that un unscripted stuff where people started resonating with it. And again, I didn't really realize how significant it was until multiple years in, where people were like,
Mhm.
we just watch you because you're real. And at
Yeah.
first I didn't really think much about it, right? I was just like, well, what other way is there to film hunting? Like that's the only way I know. And then the more you expand yourself, the more you start looking around you, it's like, oh, there's actually a lot of ways that you can go about this. But you know, again, not to toot my own horn, but I just think that how I do it is the best way that fits for me because that's how I understand hunting. That's what hunting means to me, and I want to portray that value to everybody else on YouTube, right? Like I'm not here to hunt because I want people to praise me that I shoot the biggest animals. It's not the point at all. It's just that I'm a hunter and I love to hunt and I just want to show you how my hunt went down. Like there's really no
Mhm.
greater purpose than that at all. Like it's pretty self-explanatory to the people who understand it, but there are some
Mhm.
people who don't understand it, especially the people who don't hunt. Man, I go to a lot of like family houses where they don't hunt, right? And they're like, I can't believe I watched 3 episodes of your video, so you didn't shoot nothing. And I'm like, I spent 12 days out there, man. You know how hard I
Yeah.
worked to get those 3 videos, even though I didn't shoot anything. But it's like, it's one of those things where, like, if you know hunting, like, like, I don't even have to explain to you, like, that's exactly what happened, right? And so at
Yeah.
the end of the day, it's like what some people fall into this trap of they want the biggest subscriber count, they want the most amount of views, they want that number to be as inflated as possible. But to me, it's like, I want that number to just have real people. Like, I don't
Mhm.
care if it's less than the next guy, but if those are just like 10,000 real people versus the 50,000 viewers that guy has, but most of them aren't even there for the right reason, like, I don't care. Because let's talk about it from a business sense, right? If you have a brand and you're trying to sell a product, guess who's going to buy your product? The real people. Your
Yeah.
your inflated fake number over there doesn't translate to your sales, right? And so that's
Mhm.
why you have to think from a business perspective, you have to think outside of just your views and whatnot. You have to think about the individual person itself because, like you, like Christians, I believe that every single person is unique. We're all made in the image of God. Every single person has value. And so I want to be able to cater to these people that actually matter, where I see them as a person, not just necessarily a number on a screen.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's why your content appeals to real hunters because it's we've all been in those spots that you show yourself in. And we go on those hunts and we don't find success. I really liked your bear video from 2025. I had gone bear hunting that day with a buddy of mine, and I'm not a bear hunter. I've never bear hunted. We just thought we'd try it. It was fall bear. I've got a spring bear tag this year, but anyway, we were out there and we were looking at these berries. I'm like, man, these look good enough to eat. But I didn't. I'm one of those guys. I don't eat a berry that I'm not sure I can eat, which is probably a good practice just in general. But I just started looking up bear hunting videos and I stumbled on one of yours and you actually showed the berry and I think it was the thimbleberry and you like
Mhm.
showed it in the picture and you're like these are really delicious. I'm like darn it I should have eaten that berry. But it's
Yeah.
just I think that's what's nice is you can find I mean I think all of us that are in the hunting and fishing community it's nice to be able to go on YouTube especially if it's something you haven't done and find somebody that's doing it and walking you through how to do it. Like when I first started shad fishing I'd never shad fished and I was like, okay, I'm sure there's some YouTubes. And I watched some YouTubes and then I started shad fishing and they'll bite pretty much a barrel swivel with a hook on it. They're not hard to catch, but
Yep.
still, it was until you don't know. Another video that stood out that I made note of here, and then we can kind of transition to some other topics, was one of your sturgeon videos, and I don't remember which one, but you
Mhm.
had a buddy there with you and you guys were bank fishing and you were so excited just to watch him catch fish that was also really cool for me. Like, okay, this guy is a genuine guy. He's probably caught plenty of sturgeon. It wasn't about you catching the fish. You were way more excited to hand that rod to him and let him fight the fish, which resonated for me because that's like for hunting and fishing. I'm getting older. I was born in '79, so I got a few years on you. But it's for me like watching my son harvest his first buck was more impactful than me shooting my first buck. And so I don't know if you want to speak to that a little bit about the joy of kind of getting other people into what you love to do.
Yeah, I think that's at the root of it, it's a passion thing. Like when you are truly passionate about anything, and it's not just hunting or fishing, it can be anything. When you're passionate about something, naturally, I feel like you want to share that with other people. And I would say the same thing like you. It's like when I see a buddy or a mentee, for example, where they shoot their first deer or they catch a fish that they've never caught before, they have that type of excitement where you used to have that you might not get to that same excitement level anymore. And it's not to say that I don't get excited anymore about catching a sturgeon or a trout or killing a deer. I still do. But let's be honest, you probably just don't ever get back to that same high as you shooting your very first animal or catching your
Hmm.
very first sturgeon. You just don't, because the more you do it, the more it becomes more normal. And when it becomes a common theme, it just tends to kind of taper out. Like you kind of forget that true, genuine excitement. And it's not to say that it completely diminishes, but it's simply just relative. It's not as high as that first one. And so when you see somebody who are going through that who's going through that emotions for the first time, it kind of brings you back to like, man, like I used to be that guy where I was so excited to catch that sturgeon, or I was that guy where I was so excited to shoot a turkey. Because today, like turkeys, like we're extremely blessed here that we have a very good, robust population of turkeys. I've killed a handful of them. I've watched many turkeys die. And when you do that so many times, sometimes you shoot a turkey. Now it's like, yay, I got a bird, you know. And then you take
Yeah.
like a 14-year-old kid out and they shoot a turkey and they're jumping up and down and hollering up and
Yeah.
down like they just did the biggest thing in the world. Like it's like they bring this like almost like youthful energy where
Hmm.
you've been missing. And I like to
Hmm.
see that because you know for a fact that when they're that excited about something, like you just planted a seed in them where like
Hmm.
I'm sure that this person is gonna do this on their own. Like they don't have to rely on me anymore. And so like to be able to see that passed down to not just your younger generation, but just to other friends maybe around your age, it means a lot, you know? And
Hmm.
so like even today, like I get the privilege where I get to hunt a lot of states and whatnot, but I still dedicate quite a bit of my time to just go out and help people when I can.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Well, I want to switch topics a little bit, and I've got a couple. I know we're dancing around a little bit, but I just had a lot of things I wanted to talk to you about. And so I don't know if you've been paying attention to the political landscape here in Oregon, but have you seen this initiative petition IP 28 that is trying to
Y-
get on the
y-
ballot?
Yeah, I haven't completely read through it, but I know the gist of it. Yeah.
Yeah, so it would outlaw hunting, fishing, farming, any killing of any animal.
Everything.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
pest control. Yeah, I mean, so these guys have been trying to get on the ballot for the last three election cycles, and we have our elections every 2 years, so this is their third attempt. And I believe last I saw they had 105,000 signatures. They've got to get 117,000 to make it to the ballot. So they're most likely going to get on the ballot. Most likely we all expect it to get voted down, but it does make you a little nervous because everybody thought Measure 114, which was the gun control one, would get voted down, and then it passed, and then
Yep.
everybody was freaking out, and they've been fighting it in court ever since. And so it's one of those kind of scary things where it's like our whole way of life and really our whole identity, because Chris and I grew up the same way as you, and we have so much tied into that hunting and fishing for us. And I raised some sheep on my property, so I also farm. So it's, controlling our food source and the quality of that food source and potentially having that taken away from us is a pretty kind of scary thing that could even be this close to even getting to be something we vote on.
Yeah.
But
That's just, I mean, it's not necessarily new per se. I would say I mean, to have something that extreme, I would say it's new. But simply the direction of where that bill's going, it's something that I think many people have seen it coming. I mean, Washington, we just lost our spring bear season in 2022, and so it's like we've seen a lot of fights come up, especially post COVID, where like I feel like a lot of these things have been finally been brought to light. And it's an ongoing battle. That's why I don't really think that there's ever going to be a time where it's like, yay, there's victory. It's like you might have small wins here and there,
mhm,
but you're never going to let the foot off the gas pedal. It's kind of going to be a
mhm,
continuous fight from here on out. I mean, I haven't, stayed super up to date just because I've been so busy lately, but that's something that I keep my eyes on. And that's one of the things that some people, the biggest downfall about this industry sometimes, and it's not to say that we don't do our fair share of it, but sometimes people are so prideful in where they live, where like if they don't live in that state, like they kind of don't care about it. All
right.
right.
The
And
whole
so like when
NIMBY thing, if it's not in my
exactly,
backyard, I don't care.
it's like,
Yeah.
well, it sucks for you, Oregon, but it's not gonna come.
Yeah.
It's like, well, guess what? If it happens in Oregon, guess who's next? One of
Right.
us.
Yeah.
And so that's
Somebody,
why,
somebody close. Yeah.
yeah,
And I thought for sure it would have been California first.
Yeah. Yeah. You would expect
I
something
just
like
kind
that to
of,
happen in California before
yeah,
Oregon. And
or I don't know. It
the
just,
head petitioner, though, his goal is to get it, and nothing against this guy. I mean,
he's passionate about
yeah,
it.
and we live in a country where you can have your own beliefs and your own opinions and everything, and he's willing to go talk to people that have opposing viewpoints and stuff, which I respect
It
about
was
him.
on Lars,
Yeah, he was on Lars Larson here
which
the
is
other day,
very rare.
but at the same time, his goal is to take this like nationwide. Like, and he realizes it probably won't pass this time, but he's trying to get us desensitized, if you will, to being like, oh, well, so when they only outlaw, harvesting of deer, we'll be okay with it because we could lose everything. You know what I mean? Like, kind of
Yeah.
slowly break us down. And I don't know if you're familiar with Howl for Wildlife and those guys,
I am.
Small.
Yeah, I've met Charles, I think twice now. Yeah,
Yeah, so they're
talk with him.
those guys are great and they fight this type of stuff. And so I reached out to them and was just like, "Hey, have you been following this?" And they're like, "Yeah." But at the same time, we're kind of excited about it because it's going to get it out in the public. And they'll obviously hit campaign against it like they do with every legislation item that messes with outdoorsmen. So one thing they just posted this, so I want to bring it up. So I don't know if you saw their documentary on the Catalina Island mule deer situation, but they posted a documentary about it, and it's really well done. It's on YouTube, and it's Howl for Wildlife. But they just started a fundraiser because they're actually suing to try to protect those mule deer because they want to eradicate the entire population that's been there for I don't remember how many years. I'd have to go back and watch it, but it's a
Right.
long, long time. So anyway, those guys are like stand-up guys that are fighting this kind of stuff. But at the same time, their whole concept is us as outdoorsmen uniting and not saying just because it's not in my state, I don't have to worry about it. It's like, hey, let's all fight everything together so that we can protect our way of life, you know?
Yeah,
So,
no, Charles and Howell, they've got a very solid thing. They kind of came in right when we were fighting our spring bear battle here in Washington. And so obviously I mean, I live in Washington, so you can imagine just how passionate I was about that battle. And everybody kind of teamed up about it. So I've known about Howell for a couple of years now.
hmm
But the thing about them that I appreciate is like they're really on their game. And
hmm
they've really allowed the sportsmen to have a voice because prior to Howell, it's like where are you supposed to even go if you had an opinion? It's like you didn't have a platform, right? And so
yeah,
I can't give Hal and Charles enough flowers for what they're doing. And I actually just met Charles at the Hunt Expo a few weeks ago, and I just expressed gratitude for him and how much he's willing to help the space.
yeah. I know Charles and then John Stallone and those two
Hmm.
guys, and I met them through my friend Bryant and his podcast, and I just am really impressed with what they're willing to do and how they kind of fight for all of us when we don't know they're fighting.
Yeah.
And they're really just smart guys. Like they
Yep.
they do the research, they do things the right way. And anyway, so I wanted to transition into some gear conversation, if that's okay. Just because Chris knows I've started to become a bit of like a gun purchasing junkie, if you will. But I'm
Okay.
very attracted to like older wood guns. Like I just bought a couple of Weatherbys here recently that I'm excited to hunt with. But I noticed I don't think you've done a gear drop for 2025, but I watched your 2024 gear drop, and you
Hmm.
were hunting with MDT Hunt 26 chassis, and I think you had a custom carbon fiber barrel in that setup. But that gun, that style of gun, has really exploded. It's like everybody is making them. Like it started with the Sig Crosses, and it's like a 6.6 pound or under type of gun, before you put a scope on it. And then Bergara has they call it the Premier MG Microlight. And I saw one of those on Gunbroker the other day, and I have a Bagaro that's so heavy. I was trying to negotiate a trade with this guy because he was selling it for 2,600 bucks, but the retail on it's like 3,050. And I was like, well, if I give you my old Bergara that I don't want with this MDT chassis that I put it in, and 1,200 bucks, can we make a deal? That type of thing. And
Tell you
I'm
what,
pretty
I could
sure
pull
he
that.
was ignoring me for a reason on that one. But I wanted to just get your opinion on hunting with that style of gun. So my one complaint to the more modern weapons is, and I talked to my brother-in-law about this weekend, is they don't have the personality. There's something like sort of sterile about them. But this particular gun, I think, is just super cool. Like stylistically, really cool gun. And I just want to get your opinion as someone who's hunted with something like that, how they are to hunt with.
Yeah, I think I feel like sometimes when people would go after like a custom build today, they go more after aesthetics than necessarily
Hmm.
the functionality of the rifle. To me, I like the look of a rifle, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, I care more about functionality and practicality of it more than how it looks. I
Mm-hmm.
had a 7 PRC where I had the stock just completely painted red. It looked like a red tiger. People were just
Mm-hmm.
making fun of me. I was like, dude, I couldn't care less how this rifle looked like. It's like if it's accurate, that's all I care about. But no,
Mm-hmm.
with the MDT, that specific Hunt 26 chassis, the reason why I like it is because one, it's a very lightweight,
Mm-hmm.
and two, it's the idea that you can fold the butt stock of it.
Right.
So to me, I do, not all of my hunts are backcountry hunts where I'm hiking multiple miles in, but there are several hunts throughout the year where I am doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And the ability to just be able to strap that chassis onto the back of your pack and fold that buttstock so that when you sit down, that buttstock is not hitting the ground first before your pack hits the ground. It's very important because a lot of times, especially when you have your camp and you have your rifle strapped on the outside, and then you have an entire animal in between. I mean, you have like 130 pounds on your back. When you go to sit down, you don't nicely sit down. You kind of let
Mm-hmm.
the whole pack just fall to the ground with the shoulder strap on still on your back. And so when you're doing that, if any part of your rifle is still being exposed and it's constantly getting jammed like that, I mean, one, it's prone to breaking, but two, it's prone to getting its point of impact shifted. Like it'll move your
Mm-hmm.
scope. And
Sure.
so that's the biggest reason why I like it. It's more for just carrying more than it is
Mm-hmm.
actually shooting the rifle. Because if I'm being honest, like if I am just talking about shooting and your shooting experience, I prefer a traditional style stock.
Mm-hmm.
Don't prefer to shoot a chassis, but because a chassis is simply more easy to carry around in the woods, that's why I like it.
So how's the performance? Does it, because I've never shot one. I just was just curious if like the recoil is higher or it feels like you're holding, because they look so small to me. I'm a six
Mm.
foot four, so I'm a bigger guy. And so like if I go to hold something like that, it's gonna, I don't know. They're cool looking though. I'm very aesthetically, it's like the lure that catches the fisherman instead of the fish kind of thing. But also the practicality piece of like you're getting at, you throw it in the backpack, fold it in half, it's 6 pounds. I mean, it seems pretty cool, but also the price points are very high. I watched that guy on YouTube too, Backfire TV guy that he reviews
Yep.
a bunch of guns. He does like all kinds of price ranges. And he was talking about some of the carbon fiber barrels too being like prone to like getting like dented kind of or like messed up. Like he just on his accuracy, from what I've read online, that's not the case, but he's for accuracy, he didn't put them in any of his things. A lot, very few carbon fiber barrels. So,
So, so here's the thing about carbon fiber. I'll touch on this really quick. So, you know how carbon fiber barrels, when you go to the store, they have this really cool carbon fiber look to it, right? All of that is just simply aesthetic. There is no practicality to having that carbon fiber barrel look the way it does. It doesn't matter at all. It does not change the performance of the barrel at all. Now, granted, there might be some where it does matter, but a lot of the carbon fiber barrels we have today, that is simply a wrap to make it look the
mhm.
way it is. If you took off that wrap, it doesn't look good at all. There's a lot of places along the barrel where you can get splinters. They just put it on for one safety so you don't get a splinter, but also too just the way it looks. So when he's saying that he's denting the barrel, like I don't know if he's talking about actually denting the barrel or just denting the
Well, he
wrap.
just showed one. Yeah, it's probably the wrap. I think the wrap that gets
Mm.
dinged or something. He just showed one where he dinged it and then the accuracy went down, and I don't know how bad of a fall it took. And he just didn't put it very many of the carbon wrapped on his because aren't they using like a lighter steel too that they're wrapping around that or just a
Yeah, so a carbon fiber barrel, it's the accurate term is a carbon fiber wrapped barrel because it's
mm-hmm,
actually still steel on the very
mm-hmm.
inner piece. It's just that it's being wrapped with a bunch of carbon fiber on top of it.
And so you have less steel in a sense, right, to keep
Yep,
the weight down. Yeah.
correct. Yes.
Yeah, I was just curious. Those are guns I've been watching lately and kind of drooling over. I think I've talked myself out of getting myself into another gun situation, but the one thing I do want to, because I'm planning a elk hunt with my cousins, and it's kind of going to be in their ways, and so and I have like the Jim Shockey sticks that I shoot off of a lot of times, and they're just like $130 product or whatever, and they do a fine job. But I've been talking to all these other elk hunters that shoot these long range things, and they're all telling me I got to get a bipod or I got to get a tripod that I can hook into. And I've been looking at like the Tricer ones. I don't know if you've seen those ones, but
Mhm.
that's what a
Yep.
couple guys recommended to me. What's your preference, like bipod versus tripod? And you know, for me personally, I like to be able to shoot a standing up shot off of a tripod just because that's kind of how I've always liked to shoot, especially like on but I haven't really ever taken anything over 400 yards, so I haven't had to shoot those really long shots. So they're telling me, a lot of my friends, some of my friends are telling me, you got to be able to shoot prone, you got to be able to shoot, seated, and so you want a bipod. And then other people are like going, oh, you can do it either way. So I wanted to get your take on that.
Yeah, that's a big rabbit hole because at the end of the day, it's all personal preference, and it's not just preference, but it's also application based, depending on exactly what you're trying to do. So frankly, I don't really ever shoot off a tripod, because my tripod is usually holding my camera, so I usually
Mm,
don't have an option regardless, and I'm not usually gonna haul two tripods with me. And so what that means that I'm gonna have to do is I'm either gonna shoot prone on a bipod, or if I want to shoot in any vertical position, I'm using some other natural thing to help me be steady. So whether that's leaning up against a tree or using a down log that just so happens to be the perfect height for me, like that's what I'm using. The whole
mm,
prone or like the crouching stuff, a lot of times if I have to take a crouching shot, it means one of two things. It means that the animal's on the move and
mm,
I am having to take a quick shot. Or the second one is the animal's not on the move, but the grass is either too tall and I can't shoot over a hump. If that's the
mm,
case, then I just take my time to go and actually find a place where I can set up, which oftentimes for me, using a frame pack like the initial ascent, I usually just shoot off of that because
okay.
it'll stand tall enough. But in terms of specifically the bipod, I use a bipod that is basically only for shooting prone.
Mm,
Because one, that's going to mitigate some weight because the longer your tripod or your bipod can extend, the more weight you're going to add to your rifle. The last thing I'm trying to do is make my rifle more heavy. And
yeah.
so to me, it's like, and the other thing too is like, I simply practice more prone shots than I practice anything else because prone shots, you're just more steady. And I will always do everything in my power to get down in a position where I can go prone. So when I'm making a stalk on an animal, and let's say he's out of range, but there's a little knob that I know I can get to and shoot him within 400 yards. I'm already making sure that I can go prone on that spot. If I can't go prone in that spot, I'm going to find a different route and shoot him there instead. So everything I do when it comes to getting the shot set up, it's always can I get prone? It's
Mm,
never, oh, what if I get there and I have to shoot off a knee? It's like that's not even in the question. It's just how could I get prone? And so
mm,
I don't really worry about it. Now, granted, specifically with the tricer bipod, so my buddy Dylan, he uses it a lot, and I actually just went and talked to him at the Hunt Expo when I went to their booth. It's a great bipod. If you want one bipod to just do it all, where you can shoot prone and you can even shoot kneeling or like crouching height, it's probably the best one on the market. And it's expensive. It's like
yeah.
$350 or something like that. But
Right. Yeah.
my MDT bipod that is strictly for just shooting off the ground is like $600. So like when you put it into apples to apples comparison, the Tricer is actually a really really good purchase.
Hmm. Well, that's good. I appreciate that. That helps me make. See, he endorsed it, so now I can
Yeah.
tell my wife, "Hey, Samong said, go for the Tricer. It's not that big a
Yeah,
deal."
and I believe Dylan has a code. I think if you use code Dylan sucks, you
There
can
we
save
go.
some
So just put
cash.
Dylan sucks in the promo code.
Well,
Yeah.
like, was it
Nice.
350 you wrote down for the bipod? But when
Yeah.
you're 3 grand into your rifle, it's another 10%.
Right.
That
Yeah.
Well,
really, if you're gonna, it's gonna do.
yeah, and that's I'm really specifically wanting to be able to take more accurate shots because I think I'm going to take some longer shots potentially on this elk hunt, and I need to learn how to shoot prone because I just haven't had to learn it. I've never done it, and I need to get comfortable with that before this hunt.
Yeah, standing up tripod, I think, is
But
much
yeah,
more legit.
which is how I normally hunt is standing up. So I feel like I really need a tripod and a bipod probably. But the other thing I wanted to ask you about is filming gear because I've seen, a lot of guys we know about GoPros. They've been around a long time, but every once in a while I see these ads on Facebook like I ditched my GoPro and I got this necklace magnet thing and I stick like I was just curious what you're using and what like you recommend for somebody that was trying to get started with filming some of their outdoor activities.
Yeah, that's a big rabbit hole because again, at the end of the day, it depends on what you're trying to get out of it. Because different styles of videos, in my opinion, require different styles of cameras. So
Hmm.
I'll speak on a GoPro. Yeah, those things, I'll probably believe most of those ads because I am absolutely tired of my GoPros. Those are the most unreliable pieces of cameras that I own. I go through them like crazy. They're unreliable. When you put a new battery in, they just stop recording. They just turn off, shut down. I've lost a lot of footage because the GoPros just don't work how they should. And so
Mm,
if you want an action cam, where it's like a GoPro, you know, mimic. The DJI Action is probably the way to go. That's where I'm gonna start going because one is the GoPros, they don't have good internal audio itself. I mean, it's manageable, but it's not the best. And in order for you to connect an external mic to that GoPro, their hardware that they use to connect the GoPro to the camera is way too obnoxious. And so, like for me, a lot of times when I film my fishing stuff, I need a compact camera on my chest. And I'm
Hmm.
not gonna link up a bunch of hardware with a giant mic on it just to make it capture better audio.
Hmm.
Whereas with the DJI, because I feel like they're light years ahead, everything is Bluetooth. So you can use their DJI lav mics, which I have, and connect it to Bluetooth to their actual action cam and still have better audio without having to lug it around a lot of extra hardware. So if you're wanting an action cam, the DJI Action is probably the way to go. The only reason why I recommend them is because one, they're very compact and portable. So if you're somebody where you're just kind of like, I just want to kind of vlog and I don't want to be dealt with this weight penalty, then yeah,
Hmm.
that's kind of the way to go. The downfalls of that is they don't have zoom. So like
Hmm.
and a deer at 20 yards is gonna look like a little dot in your footage. So like if
Right.
you're like, I want actual good footage of like the animals, that's probably not your best bet. Now, granted, I use a mixture of things. So I use my those action cams I'm talking about as a secondary camera. It's never my primary unless I'm fishing. I will
Hmm.
always have it on the strap so that it can record what I'm doing. So like if I'm setting up the camera or setting up my rifle, that can capture what I'm doing. But then my main camera is always a camcorder because camcorders, everything is built into it. All the zoom you
Hmm.
need is built into the camcorder. You can have like a DSLR, like my Canon R5, where, yeah, you can get a gigantic lens where it can zoom really, really far like a spotting scope. But guess what? If you want to film close, now you got to take off the giant lens, get the little lens,
Swap it
put it
out real
on.
quick. Hold
But
still.
then,
Yeah.
but then at that point, look how much gear you're lugging around in
Hmm.
your pack. And so
Yeah.
it's like, I stay away from DSLRs unless I tell people, unless you know for a fact that you have a specific vision of the videos you're trying to make and the DSLR is the best option. Because don't get
Hmm.
me wrong, the DSLR, they have the best of everything. They've got the highest quality
Quality.
video,
Yeah.
they've got the best audio, they've got the best settings because you can control every little minute detail that you want within that video camera with the DSLRs at least. For
Hmm.
me though, like I'm not out there to film the highest production video. I'm sure you guys
Hmm.
have seen it. I'm pretty much point and shoot type of guy. Like I turn the camera on, it's on automatic. I press record. I stop recording. That's all I do with my cameras. And so I use a
Hmm.
camcorder because a lot of times I'm self-filming. So that
Hmm.
means I have to set up for the shot with my rifle. I have to set the camera up myself. I have to do everything myself. So the more I can streamline what I have to do with the camera, the better. So the camcorders, I use a Panasonic X1500. The only reason why I use that is because that is the only camcorder on the market right now where it records 4K in 60 frames
Oh.
and it has 20 times zoom. Zoom as a hunter is very important because let's say at 300 yards, for example, that's pretty much right at the distance where like the animals are still far enough where they might not see you, but they're also close enough where they can bust you. And
Hmm.
so I need that 20 times zoom because if I see an elk at 300 yards, I know that that camcorder alone is sufficient to get the kill shot on video. If it's any farther than that, then I go to my spotting scope with my all-in adapter. I just film through my
Hmm.
spotting scope. So that's how I use a mixture of cameras. And like through that example, I'm sure you can already figure out like every camera has its own purpose. Like there's not
Hmm.
really one camera that kind of does it all. And so that's why when people ask me like what's the best camera for a hunt, I'm like, well, it kind of depends on what you're trying to do because I know what works for me, but that doesn't mean that you're gonna try to film the same way I'm trying to film, you know?
Yeah. John, that was supposed to come here tonight, he filmed one of my mule deer hunts. It was like a couple of years ago. And I had gotten that 6.5 PRC. I was all excited. Chris knows about my journey. I was all
Yeah.
excited about this gun. And uh, I missed the first shot, like to the right, big time. And this buck was 380 yards, like where he couldn't see me. He was way, we got as close as we could get, but we were on a rock ledge and he was down below feeding. And in the video, he like turns his head, like, what was that? It just flew by me so fast. And then John's like, a little bit to the left. And I went like half a deer length left because I knew I'd missed that bad. And then he dropped immediately. So it was kind of cool to have that video. And just, that was the first, like, I guess, kill shot we've ever got on video. And for me, it's always just replaying those moments in my head, really. But to your point, when we first started talking, it's like those memories, I don't think we, as hunters and as fishermen, you ever really forget them. But it's nice to go back and be like, oh, that's kind of, I didn't remember it exactly like that, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, and
So,
the best part about it is you actually get to share it, right? Like you
hmm
could tell somebody your memory, but it's all about what they're imagining. And because I know for a fact, like growing up, my dad would always tell me how his hunt went down, but like as a kid, you're having to use your imagination. So I guarantee you, it wasn't even close to what he was actually experiencing out there, not
right.
even in the same realm of the world, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the reasons why I started filming too. I do remember like it wasn't a big part of it, but it was a factor of some point where like I just wanted to be able to like relive this and share this with people.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, I had a GoPro too. I can't remember how many years ago my wife had bought me one, and we took it steelhead and salmon fishing for a season, and it was terrible. I did not like using it. Well, and it was kind of early, not right in the beginning of GoPro's popularity, but just after that. So it probably wasn't as good as, one now. But I had a hell of a time with it,
Just fighting it.
It just well, also too, it's like it's fine if you're having to mess with it if you're not catching any fish.
Yeah.
But it was a pretty productive year on the boat, so it's like, you know what, I'm not even gonna deal with
You
this
gotta
now.
focus on the fishing.
Rods are going off,
Yeah.
especially up in Astoria, and we got some cool 360 image stuff with it. And then after that, it just sits on my bookshelf.
Yeah.
Now I don't even use it. But that's kind of what the grip and grin photograph was before cameras. I mean, that's why when I see a lot of it hasn't been common, the
Grip
last.
and grin. I've never heard that before.
That's
I get
what
it now.
that's
It
what it's
took me a
called.
minute.
Yeah, grip and
Yeah.
grin.
Always hold it
Um,
really far, closest to the camera. It makes the
Especially
fish
you
look a
have
lot
to.
bigger.
But I always thought that was funny that, people who don't take part in the outdoors or hunt fish like that, they complained about the photos, but they didn't understand. That's what that was.
It was the memory.
It
You
was
were
the
creating the
memory. That
memory.
was that was the way to do it.
Yeah, I have a hunting photo album and a fishing photo album, and
Yep.
I can go back through there and I write little dates on when I got them. I always journal after every hunt too, and I
Oh,
write
do
like
you?
where I
That's
got
great.
the animal. And I just figured because if my kids ever want to go back to the places that I was at,
Sure.
they'd be able to. I give them enough, information to
I
get
mean,
themselves there.
I have photos that have my grandfather as my great grandfather who was born in the 1800s with as an old man. I mean, clearly with paddlefish,
Yeah. Just
stuff
cool.
like
That stuff's
yeah,
cool. Those old, think about like that. If our photos make it, like a lot of people don't print their stuff, it's just on
uh,
your phone, right? And but I always print all my hunting and fishing stuff and I put them in an album because who knows, like 100 years, maybe some generation would still look through there and be like, oh,
well, it
there's
was
my great
cool.
great grandpa with
Yeah,
a sturgeon or a trout
it
or
was cool
whatever.
to have those and ask my grandfather when he was in his 80s, like, hey, tell me about this day.
Hmm.
And he still had a clear enough memory. But I just this last year bought a photo album for my family, for my wife and I, because I was like, you know what? Everybody did it. We should do it.
See, Samong's great 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 grandchildren are just gonna be able to pull him up on YouTube.
Yeah.
Be like,
Well,
remember when Grandpa was going after mule deer in Utah? Oh, there it
yeah.
is.
And
So
they're gonna have to
As
watch, which
long
is
as
great.
YouTube doesn't pull everything down one day, then they'll be able
yeah.
to watch it.
What do you think of it? Do you think that will happen?
Dude, with today, you never know. I
You
mean,
never
I
know.
don't
Mhm.
really have too much trouble with YouTube, fortunately, but you don't know.
Yeah.
Like people say that I'm my own boss, and I'm like, I am not my own boss. I could wake up tomorrow, my YouTube channel is
Yeah,
deleted.
YouTube's in
Like
charge.
I am at the mercy of whatever they do. I am not
You're
my
a
own
YouTube
boss at all.
employee. Yeah.
Exactly.
Hey, my wife's MySpace account wasn't going to go anywhere, and sure enough, it did. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
So
yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I have a couple more things to cover. Let me see what we're doing on time. I think we're still good.
Yep.
We're just a little over an hour. Hopefully, we're not keeping you from the
I've got
nephews too
tonight.
long.
No,
Okay.
no,
Oh,
you're
so we're just gonna
saving me
keep you
from
here all
them.
night.
You're
Okay.
saving me
Yeah.
from them, so we're good.
Yeah, yeah. Well, a couple other things I had down. So I've watched your videos so far this year. The latest two, the sheephead and the rainbow trout, and
mhm.
those. I love the whole catch and cook concept. I love that. I love to go watch somebody catch a fish, but then prepare it and cook it. And the sheephead, they looked delicious. Like, are they as good as they
Oh,
looked?
yeah, the sheephead, those are probably easily top five fish. Like I have five fish in my mind, and I wouldn't necessarily rank them in any order, but
Yeah.
they're
Well, let's hear them. Let's
extremely
hear your
good.
Yeah,
top
I'm
five.
interested to
Yeah.
see the five.
Top five? Well, sheephead's one of them.
Hmm.
I've got crappie. I've got walleye. Uh, I would just probably classify salmon as salmon. Like I can't really tell the difference between like a coho and like any other species.
Sockeyes in Alaska are pretty darn good,
Yeah,
but go
but
ahead.
because I was in Alaska in August and we got cohos and sockeyes, I couldn't tell the
Mhm.
difference. But salmon's one of them, and then
Mhm.
halibut. Oof,
Oh yeah.
halibut is so good. Those are my
See, I
top
don't.
five.
I'm surprised sturgeon doesn't make your list, but I've heard you on your videos say that sturgeon has like that aftertaste,
It
that you don't
does.
like or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sturgeon, they have a very metallic taste to them. And I think that's just due to the fact that they live in the water so long that they just
It's
kind of absorb whatever's in the river. Because our rivers are pretty polluted, let's be honest. Like they're
Yeah,
not
it's kind
clean.
of scary to eat a keeper sturgeon is like 9 to 20 years old out of the Columbia River.
Yeah.
You're like, that's a lot of years for it to absorb a lot of not good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's my biggest downfall about sturgeon is yes, they're good, but they're not my favorite. Like I don't mind
Mm,
eating them, but they get to a point where like let's just put it this way. I don't go out of my way to go catch a sturgeon to eat it.
mm.
I go
Yeah.
sturgeon fishing because I like to catch them, but like nowadays, like I don't go out because I'm like, wow, I'm really craving sturgeon. Like, let me just go catch a sturgeon to cook up real quick. Like, it doesn't have that craving anymore.
We just had two keeper days, and I did go out and get
But they're
one, but I
gonna.
do like to eat them. But I also hadn't eaten one in like 15 years probably.
Well,
Yeah.
But all yeah, and also crappie. I'm so this little lake that I have by my house, we have largemouth bass, bluegill, and crop. And there's some catfish, but I've never caught one. I've caught them in like a net, little teeny one, so I know there's some in there. But these crappie, I'm telling you, I mean, it's hard to tell on camera, but I would say like 14 to 16 inches, like maybe even 18, like big crappies.
Big.
Is it better to eat the big ones or the little ones?
Honestly, I haven't noticed a difference in taste. I mean, I don't. It's been a minute since I've seen a 15 plus inch crappie. But
Mm,
back then, there used to be a lake just not too far from Spokane here where like that was pretty much all you were casting. You were catching
mm,
hundreds of like 15-inch crappie. And those things
wow.
were awesome because when you threw them on the grill, like, you're not picking through little bones because they're so big.
Mm,
And
yeah.
but the one thing I did remember is like they didn't taste any different than like your 9, 10-inch, 11-inch crappie.
Okay. Yeah, I
They
was
just
just
had a lot more
curious because
meat.
we got some giants in our
mm,
lake. But the thing about our lake is you've got all these farmer fields, and then you're worried about like what has gone into that water for, God
Yeah.
knows how long,
like I say,
So,
atrazine, they've been
yeah.
spraying for 50 years.
So the last couple things that I had on the list here was what do you have coming up for 2026? Any new gear that you're going to be testing out this year? And then also just general tips for new outdoorsmen, outdoors women.
I just had
And
to.
Chris has got one too. I
Yeah,
always cut this guy off. He was
yeah.
supposed to wave something at me.
I had it right
So
here.
yeah, there you go. Wave the hat.
Uh,
Uh, no, but anyway, so I had like, what do you got coming up 2026? What kind of new gear? General tips for new outdoorsmen, outdoors women, and what do you have, Chris?
oh, the rifle cartridge. What is your favorite? Do you have
Oh,
a
that's a good
favorite?
one.
What's your,
Yeah.
because,
Oh, man,
I
that's
like a
a
lot of
deep
different
one.
ones.
Yes, I,
It
Yeah.
I'm the
is.
same
No, it's
way.
a, some of his
Chris
rifles.
could literally talk to you about this for 2 more hours. He
Oh,
loves
yeah.
guns and
That's what,
ballistics, and
yeah.
he's
Yeah,
way smarter about it than I am.
I'm kind of in that whole like, like I'm pretty new to bows, for example, right? But like rifles, oh, I'm all over that, man. Like I have a little too many rifles, but I still can't stop myself from buying new rifles because I'm just like, oh, I'll find another reason why I need that rifle at some point.
I fully
But
endorse that.
He's
but
not.
no,
Are you
for
married? Are you married?
I'm not,
Not yet. Okay,
which
keep
is
it
why I'm
up
taking
then.
advantage of it.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
I
yes. And those
understand.
are an investment. That's like money in the bank,
You
buddy.
gotta get
You
your
Yep.
just
nails
keep
fixed.
buying those.
They don't
Yeah.
Yeah.
lose rifles don't really lose their value, so they're
Mm,
Uh-huh.
they're a good purchase. But no, for one cartridge, and it sounds so like old school, but like I love my 7 PRC, I love my 280 Acklys, all those good stuff. But like if I had to choose one cartridge, it's the 308 Winchester. And
Mhm.
and here's why. One, it's extremely available. Like you can find 308 anywhere. And not only can you find them anywhere, but pretty much every ammo manufacturer loads for a 308. The second
mhm,
one, or the third reason is because if you want a rifle, I would say 99% of rifles have a 308 chambering. And then fourth, it's pretty accurate, I would say. And then fifth, it's plenty and it's enough of a cartridge to take down pretty much everything I would want to hunt here in North America. At
mhm.
least the distances I'm wanting to shoot, which is usually 400 yards and in, sometimes 500 yards, but no more than 500 yards. But that's the reason why I choose it. Now, if you were to be like specific niche cartridges and you say, hey, instead of a Duota cartridge, like let's say just a specific elk cartridge, now my answer would be completely different.
Hmm.
But for one rifle, one cartridge to do everything, it's like the 308 Winchester is kind of it. And it's oftentimes why I tell a lot of people who are buying their first rifle, I'm like, buy the 308 Winchester because you don't have to worry about spending too much money on ammo because they are a lot
Hmm.
less expensive than say a 7 PRC or even a 6.5 PRC. And
Right.
Another thing I like about this guy, he
I
tells
love,
people how to save money.
hey, I love
I mean,
everything you just said there
yeah.
well,
because
the
every person I've told the same thing.
yeah, and it's true because at some point, let's be honest, when you go to pull the trigger, sometimes you forget where you're even shooting. All you know is the gun goes boom, and then
Yeah,
whether the animal goes down or not, that's
sure.
depending on whether you hit it or not. Because like last year, when my dad and my brother and myself, we tripled on three elk, right? We used three different guns. We all dropped them dead. Like there
Yeah.
was there was no difference. Like I used a 280 Acklin improved. My dad used a 308 Winchester. My brother used a 7 PRC. We all killed our elk just fine. And so at some point, it's like you can argue ballistics and muzzle
Hmm.
velocity and muzzle energy, but
Sure.
here's the thing: the elk have not evolved to gain armor over the past 50 years. They still
I
have the same skin.
thank you.
Yeah, we got
Yeah.
an elk hide on this table right now, so
Yeah.
it's
Oh, nice.
dampening our sound a
And
little bit.
and
Yeah.
they don't know what you're shooting them with. So
Yeah.
Exactly.
it's more about putting it, getting spending the time behind the gun with whatever cartridge you're gonna shoot, so you're confident when you're ready to pull the trigger.
Hmm.
Yeah,
But I do like how you said 280 Ackley. I love that cartridge a lot.
so
I
I
think
just
it's
started
great.
using it last year, but the reason why cartridge I feel like is so overrated is because
Hmm.
it kind of is overrated.
It
What
is.
people should be talking about is the bullet itself.
Hmm.
Because let's just put it this way, like you have a 300 Win Mag that's shooting like a very classic 180 grain Remington Corlock, right? Doesn't have
Hmm.
a very good BC. And then you take like a 30 6 with a 178 grain ELDX, which has a really high BC. The 30 6 hits harder than the 300 Win Mag at longer
Hmm.
distances. So you can say, oh, yeah, get the 300 Win Mag, but it's like, no, the specific load you're using for that rifle matters a
Sure.
lot more than the
Hmm.
cartridge itself.
Yeah,
So,
bullet construction has a lot to do with it. I'm shooting an ELDX in my 7 Red Mag. I like it, but I have boxes and boxes of core locks partition, specifically in like 270 and 30-06,
yep.
just for shooting deer in the valley. It's fine.
But I also think time behind the gun, like you said, that's what gets me in
Always,
trouble. I always say I'm going to shoot more, and then I never do. And then I am always in these situations where I regret a shot or I don't. I mean, I've been very fortunate, and I can't complain because most of my animals have gone down with one bullet. But I still miss more often than I would like to miss, and that's
yeah.
just. And I know it's not the gun, and it's not the ammo. It's this guy.
It's
You know.
almost never the gun or the
So
ammo.
Yeah. And I think that one's like, at least you self-diagnosed it because some people don't practice. They're like, man, this gun just sucks. And I'm like, I don't know if it's the gun. Like, it's probably something else.
I
But
used to be that guy. I'd go trade it in for another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about 7 I went grouse hunting September, was
Mhm.
it? And I had shooting grouse with the 22. And I told him afterwards, I said, man, I had a hell of a time with that. You shoot an incredibly small bobbing head with a 22. And I was like, it kind of made me feel bad a little
That's just
bit.
how I grew up doing it,
Yeah,
you know.
well,
So,
that's the way you should, but it's like,
and it's legal.
it's legal. That's what you should do it, I think. But I was like, man, it really made me question how I spent a lot of time, just not lately. So it's like it kind of re-kicked that up in me. Like, I need to probably start shooting a little bit more.
Yeah. So, Samong, what do you have coming up for 2026?
well, unlike you guys, I struck out on Oregon Spring Bear. So I didn't draw. But my buddies and my brother, they drew Oregon Spring Bear, so I'll probably just tag along with them. I mean, I can still just hop over to Idaho or Montana and get those tags too, but I don't really know if I'm gonna have time to do that stuff because I really
Hmm.
want to hunt with my buddy Nate because we didn't really get to hunt together last year, and so I'll probably just go and tag along and film from them. And then I got my normal spring turkey stuff, like that's pretty much a staple with what I do. If everything goes well, I need to talk to a guy, but I might be going to Texas in April, right around that opener for turkey for just some hog hunting. We were supposed to do it last year, but some last minute things fell through, and so we couldn't do it. So we pushed it back to this year. So I need to finalize on that. And then that's kind of my whole April slash May, if you will. And then it's just kind of fishing. Like May is one of my favorite months to fish, but unfortunately, it's just also when everything seems to be going on at the same time. So
Mm,
it's pretty hard to try to fish in month of May, but I love May fishing. That's when I usually go down to the river, go catch sturgeon, go catch crappie, all that good stuff. And then in June and July, like a lot of that stuff is just scouting. I do a lot of
mm,
scouting. But then in the fall, that's where it goes busy. But as of right now, I can't really speak on it because,
mm.
like you guys, Oregon and Washington, we have the latest dates when the draw results come out and being like mid-June. So like
Right.
I can't really plan
You don't know
anything.
what you're doing yet. Yeah.
Like I have a good idea because realistically, I'm probably not gonna draw anything, but you never know. So I don't want to make a plan and then have something like
Mm,
come up and then you have to completely shift. But theoretically, I should be able to draw Montana, the general deer and elk combo in Montana, and then I'll just be doing my regular Washington over-the-counter stuff. I'll most likely be doing my Oregon blacktail hunt again. And then I do have a hunt that I'm gonna take my camera guy. So this year, for the first time ever, actually like hired my first ever employee, if you will. And so
mm,
he's basically been taking care of all the podcasts, editing the podcast, and even editing some videos for the Samong Outdoors. So the last two trout videos you watched, like that was actually edited by him. And so
mm.
he's never killed an elk. So
Oh.
I applied for him in Oregon this year in a unit where I think it's like a guaranteed draw, even with 0 points. And
Mhm.
if he gets drawn with it, then we're gonna hire some horses and pack him in, and hopefully he gets to go smack his first elk. But then that's the only thing that I really know that's a guarantee. Everything else is kind of up in the air, and it just kind of
Mhm.
depends on what we draw.
Yeah, Oregon mule deer hunting's up in the air this year too because they changed all the units, so everything's
Yeah,
totally different. So nobody knows what to expect. I drew last year, so the odds of me drawing are pretty poor this year, but my son should draw a youth tag, so I'll get to go to
so
my same
do you
unit with
guys in
him.
Oregon, do you guys mainly do mule deer or do you guys mainly do blacktail?
Well, so blacktail's over the counter, mule deer is a
Yep.
draw. So most of us, at least I always grew up putting in for the mule deer and then just buying the blacktail as a secondary prize kind of thing
Yep.
as far as rifle hunting goes. And then archery, some of it is draw now too for the eastern stuff, and then but they're a lot easier to get. You
Yeah.
can get them every year pretty much. Whitetail, I've never even tried to get because we have a very small whitetail population.
Tilapia,
But
whitetail to the extreme. I have a friend that gets it.
you kind of have to know
Populations.
somebody on
It's
private with
private.
private
It's
ground for
mostly
the most
private.
part. Because I,
Mhm.
think it's
I hunt on public ground, but I also have like a blacktail herd in my neighborhood of like maybe 30 deer, does, and then the bucks come in during the rut. So I see blacktail all the time on my own property. So and the hunting blacktail there's a lot of blacktail hunters. It's a lot more competitive. It's a lot more bushy, as you know, like the area that they're in. And so I always grew up as that was like the consolation prize, so I was never that excited to blacktail hunt. And then when I finally did it right, and I saw, like with my son, he had the a later tag, and I saw the double white patch in the fog,
yeah.
and I didn't wait long enough, and that buck snuck away from us. And then I was like, man, I know that was a deer. And so then we kept hunting that day, and then I saw that same double white patch again, and my son couldn't see it, and we finally got on that buck and got that buck. I was like, okay, now I get the blacktail thing, like it, because they are
Yeah.
so sneaky. I mean, they can just really escape. And so I'm actually excited to blacktail hunt this year, assuming I don't get lucky and draw a tag. But yeah, like because everything's new, nobody really knows what's going to happen. But do you have any new gear you're going to be testing out this year?
Yeah, pretty much every year I shoot new rifles. So that's
Mhm.
the most obvious one is just I just get to shoot new rifles. And just being in the industry and being in my job, like I work with a handful of companies, so companies are always coming out with new products. And so I'll be usually like most of the time I'm testing gear more than I'm using gear that I know what I've already proven. And so,
Mhm.
as of right now, like I guarantee you, within the next 5 months or so before the season starts, my gear list is completely different than what I have right now.
Got
So
ya.
like I'll have new
So how does
tents.
that work? Do they just call you and say, "Hey, we want you to hunt with our gun this year. We'll send it to you"?
Yeah, so it's a big rabbit hole, but it just depends on how formal your relationship is with that company. So for example,
Mm-hmm.
like Vortex, like I'm on a contract with them. So when you're on a
Mm-hmm.
contract with them, I mean, you can style the contract however you want, but when I do a contract, I like everything to be concrete. So I know exactly what I need to do. And so when you
Mm-hmm.
set that contract out, let's say it's a year contract, they'll be like, this is what we need from you. And then I'll be like on my end, this is what I'm gonna do for you. And then as they're releasing products, I mean, you sign an NDA as part of the
Mm-hmm.
contract, so you get notified about products are going to be releasing in 2026 way before the public even knows about them. And so
Mm-hmm.
there's stuff right now that I can't even disclose, but then I get to set all that stuff up, and then once hunting season comes through, then that's when I can expose it, but I'm already like using it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of that, like that's an actual formal relationship. There's a lot of companies where all they do is hit you up and be like, hey, we just want to send you some products and use it however you want. Like promote if you want, don't promote it. We don't really care. And
Mm-hmm.
usually I like being a gear junkie, I like to test them all out, so I still use them anyway. But
Yeah.
that's kind of just a little insider as to how it works. Sometimes it's very formal, sometimes it's just random and spontaneous, and you don't really have plans for it.
Huh. That's kind of cool.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
great.
it's exciting. You get to try some new stuff, you know?
Yeah, and the thing about the hunting industry is it's very small. So like once you kind of know a handful of people in there, you kind of have the network to everybody, right? And so like
Mm-hmm.
if you want to try something, or sometimes somebody will hear about you through one of their mutual friends, and they'll be like, "Hey, we want to send you some stuff." So like this year, I got three brand new Eberly stock packs, and I got a new Weatherby Vanguard sitting next to me right now with a bunch of new suppressors and stuff like that, new ammo that I'm going to be testing. So yeah, the whole gauntlet, man. Just got a brand new Hoyt RX-10 Ultra sitting next to me right here. So
Nice.
just a lot of gear that I got to set up, man. It's set
I
up
hunt
and
with
then
an
use.
Everly stock pack, and I really like it. And
Dude,
it was just a random choice. And it's now that I've broke it in kind of and gotten the feel for it, I really, really like it.
really, I'm
Yeah.
Stone Glacier.
Yeah. I,
Yeah.
I think whatever works for you. The
It
hard
doesn't.
part is the industry has gotten so good and the technology is so good that I feel like you can't go wrong with a lot of different things.
You stick with the
Yeah,
big
that's
companies.
the thing is like the industry it pushes itself, right?
Hmm.
Like they really at one point kind of plateau with each other until there's a company that really just comes out with something brand new that completely elevates the game, but then it doesn't take very long for everybody else to kind of sneak back up to them. So but that's a good thing because we win as consumers, right? Like when businesses
Hmm.
compete, you win as a consumer. So I'm always
Price
all
point
for it.
comes down, and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why the other day when I was looking at my Ruger American, I was like, dude, that thing used to be the budget king. Now it's not even a budget rifle.
Right.
So, yeah, it's just
Uh,
it's just crazy how it works.
so general tips for a new outdoorsman, outdoors woman. What would you say? Like, so somebody that maybe didn't grow up like we did, but has watched your videos or just kind of wants to kind of dabble in the hunting or fishing space. Like, what would you say for someone just getting started?
Yeah, the best thing I can do is with the resources that we have online today, you can have a really good idea of how to get started. Gear wise, physically preparation or prepared, all of that stuff, do what you can with online resources. That's the best thing I'm going to say to start out with because you can do that
Hmm.
anytime. You can do it on your phone, you can do it on your computer when you're at home in between shifts, whatever. But the one thing that I tell a lot of people that reach out to me is that woodsmanship is your best teacher. A lot of people think that forums and podcasts and videos are gonna teach them how to hunt. And don't get me wrong, there's some value and there's merit to learning from that stuff. But what's truly gonna make you a better hunter or fisherman or fisherwoman is you spending time out there. You
Hmm.
cannot you cannot replace that because a lot of times, let's say you listen to a podcast about mule deer hunting, that guy might give you some very general tips about mule deer hunting, but those general mule deer tip that he's giving might not necessarily be true for the exact herd of mule deer that you are hunting. So you
Hmm.
still have to go out and learn that specific herd that you are hunting because they might behave a little bit different. Because if a guy's talking about high country mule deer hunting, but you're down here hunting like lowland sagebrush mule deer, it's not the same. The deer don't move the same. They rely on different food sources. They feed different. They bed different. How they operate in general is completely different, right? And so you have to
Hmm.
learn that specific herd or that specific fishery that you are after And the only way you're going to learn that is by doing it yourself, because you can have a friend who might hunt that same herd or fish that same fishery, but they might tell you just some very general stuff as well. You miss the little nooks and crannies and the little
Hmm.
nuances that nobody really teaches you because it doesn't come up in their mind when they're trying to teach you it. And it's not to say that they're not trying to teach you, but it's just that like they're glancing over that stuff because it's so small. Those details don't
Hmm.
really seem like it matters to them. But in the long term stuff, in the grand scheme of things, those are kind of the details that kind of matter and build your
Yeah.
foundation to be a good hunter or good fisherman.
Well, even in your sheephead video, it was until you guys figured out the hook set, you guys were missing fish
Yep.
initially, and then you're like, oh, that's, and then once you got it, you got it, and I
Yep.
think that's the part until you're doing it and you're feeling that subtle bite, and it's like, oh, okay, you set the hook like sturgeon fishing, you set the hook when you feel that pull, you don't do it when they're first nibbling. I mean, you can, but it's there's a lot of nuance to being an outdoorsman or outdoors woman,
Yep.
and
Yeah, and I'll leave them on this one. It's just like some people, I get emails of people who are like, I really want to learn from you. And I'm like, dude, I'm still learning, man. Like, if you think that you're coming to me because I know everything, you've got the wrong guy because I don't think there's a single person out there that is still not currently always learning something when they're out
mm,
there, right?
oh yeah,
It's really a marathon. There's really no destination. Like, there's a
mm,
destination, sure, but trust me, nobody's ever gonna get there. And so
yeah,
all you got to do is you got to start tying on your own shoes and start running with everybody else.
yeah. That's,
Very well said.
it is. I know that was a good one.
I mean,
It's a
yeah,
tough one to follow up on.
yes, you can.
Other than I just want to thank you so much for being here. I know
Yeah,
for taking your time. I know you're a busy guy, and we really enjoy your content and what you're putting out. Keep doing it. Keep doing all the things you're doing, and it's just our privilege. And thank you for sharing some of the family history and stuff, and giving us your background. I think that was really neat to hear. So
Yeah, no.
I love that. I mean, the way that you explained it, I was like, man, about how it wouldn't like going back there. It would be like a vacation. I'm like, dude, you're American, dude. You're doing the thing. Your family's doing the thing.
mm-hmm.
I love it. And I mean, he's sharp. This guy is real sharp just by
Oh
listening to him talk.
no, he
I
is.
can't wait
Yeah,
to see what the next 10 years of videos
yeah.
are gonna look. I mean,
Well, I mean, just watching your evolution
oh,
from when you started to
it's awesome.
now. I mean, it's like we kind of got to watch you grow up on camera a little
Yeah, it's
bit,
cool.
and then with your family, I did have one question on that. How long were they living in the jungle? Like, what was that timeline?
Um, I haven't really asked because frankly, they don't even really know themselves because you don't have
Mm,
calendars. But I would say
right.
at least probably 3 to 5 years if I had to ballpark it.
Wow.
Is that
Yeah.
amazing? It's amazing.
I would like
Yeah,
to
it's
get your dad on here and talk to him about it.
Yeah.
yeah. My dad, he was a little bit more privileged in the sense that he didn't have to survive nearly as long as like my mom, but
Mm,
so like my dad, he's really the only person I know from his family. Everybody, like all his
Oh,
brothers, which are my uncles, they all still live in Laos. Like I don't really
mm,
know them at all. All the uncles that I hunt today and I learn from, they're all from my mom's side, and those are
mm,
the ones that really survived in the jungle. That's why like today, my mom always jokes. It's like, dude, like honestly, like our whole family should have been wiped out in that jungle. Like to
mm,
be honest, like we've all should have
yeah.
died in that jungle. But it was a miracle that we somehow
Yeah.
survived, right? But then on top
Yeah.
of that, the good thing is like one of my uncle, his name is Blong, and he's the I don't know if you watched it, but he's the one that shot the big bull elk on the horseback hunt
Mm,
2 years ago.
yeah.
And he was really the hunter in the family where my grandpa always said, "All right, you need to go find stuff for us to eat. You need to go hunt." And so it was through that he learned how to like actually hunt, how to track, how to trap. And so he
Mm,
basically took those skills and came over here and it was just like seamless, right? Like so way back early in the days, like he was always the one killing deer. Nobody else really
yeah.
ever killed anything, but it's just like that's
So,
why I tell people it's like your woodsmanship matters. It's not just
mm,
who's teaching you. It's like if you have real experience, that's what's going to be the reason why you're consistently successful out on the water or in the woods.
yeah. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing some of that family history with us. That was really cool to hear.
I
Because I mean, I don't know how often you share that, but to me, I wouldn't know your background unless you shared it, and it's a neat
Yeah,
story.
I appreciate it, and I enjoyed telling that story. And like I said, every time I tell those stories, I always bite my tongue a little bit because like I don't feel like it's my spot to kind of tell a story that's so
Mm,
deep in a way.
mm,
But I enjoy these podcasts because really those are the only places I get to tell the story because hardly
Yeah.
ever do you get time to actually explain and elaborate on that story. But it's my pleasure, man. I've really enjoyed this conversation as a whole.
Yeah. I,
Yeah.
I don't think you should ever stop telling that story. I mean, I tell people the stories of my grandfather growing up on a shack on the Missouri River and making it to where he made it. I think
Mhm.
those stories are incredibly important. And also too, it helps us appreciate what we have.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. I
really
mean, you should have a lot of pride for your
yeah, you
family
should.
and what they've done and
What
what
they
they were
made
able
it
to,
through.
and what they set you up with. I mean, it's a
Yeah,
really, it's, God had a plan
Sure.
and you're
amen.
living it and walking in it. So
Yeah.
it's
No,
like,
if you guys ever hear me complaining about what I get to do, you can just slap me. Like you just be like,
we're
he's
gonna we're
completely
gonna
lost
message
his
you and
mind.
just be like, "What is going on, buddy?"
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Again, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Hopefully, we can do this again with you. As time allows. So, thanks a lot.
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
thank you,
I'm always
Brady.
here for an
All right.
invitation.
All right. Thanks, sir.
Thank
Have a
you.
nice evening.
All right, you too.
All right. Bye.
All right, leaving.
Yeah, I just don't know how to stop the recording.
Okay.
I'm super good at technology. There we go.
I like.
All right.
Hey,